Hey guys, it's Hannah Miley here, and apologies I can't be with you guys in person, which is why this is pre-recorded. I was asked to do a little presentation on basically my journey through swimming, because I've been in the same position as you guys. I was your age once. I can't believe I'm at the stage where I am saying this now. And yeah, a lot of people tend to look at all the success and the results, but a lot of people don't realize a lot of work that's gone in behind the scenes. And as athletes, you know that there is a fair amount of work. Swimming is possibly one of the toughest sports out there for training. We're in a medium that takes gravity away, or it's not as much. You're horizontal as well. Runners, footballers, hockey players, rugby players, whenever they finish training, they can walk off the pitch and or walk off the track. And as they're walking, they're still upright. So their body is still pretty much practicing the mechanics, the basic mechanics and movements of their particularly chosen sport. But in swimming, for us, it's very, very difficult. And especially during lockdown, the closest thing we could have gotten to replicate swimming out with the pool is being in a bath. And that doesn't really get us anywhere. So for me, my journey's been a very long one. I started at quite a young age. And I've had many successes, but also I've had many lows. And I guess one of the things when we're younger, we have a lot of input and told, being on the podium is great. You win medals when you're young. You love the buzz, you love the hype, you stick with it, you get competitive, and you keep chasing that more and more and more. And then you look at some of these elite level guys, and they're making the podiums at Worlds, Europeans, Commonwealths, and the Olympics as well. And it's the dream. It's the dream to be on this podium. And it was a dream for me as well. But in order to get to that point, there were many life lessons that I had to go through, and it definitely wasn't smooth sailing. A lot of people don't realize that I'd come forth quite a few times at quite a few couple of competitions. I've had a couple of injuries as well. And just going through my teenage years into, a young adult as well, my mindset changed a little bit. Life changes too. You've got schoolwork, you get to university work. I've recently just bought a house. So at the minute I've got home life. So I've got a mortgage to pay. There are so many different things out there that I think are really quite important to be aware of. That yes, the life of an athlete is incredible, dedication, hard work, resilience, but a lot of self-reflection is actually really quite nice. Being able to see how far you've come and where you started off at, what drove you to be the athlete that you are today. And for you guys, it'll be exciting to see the athlete that you become as well, because I'm pretty sure if you look back, a couple of years ago, the athlete that you were, you'll see a couple of differences. And for me personally, lockdown was one of the best times in order to see that, because you forget about them. You strive to be on podium, strive to get the medals, and sometimes you forget about those moments and the sort of buzz and the adrenaline rush that you get being there. So I've got a little presentation that has quite a few pictures, and each picture has a little bit of a story. And I guess if I was to tell you my whole life completely, we'd be here for hours, and I do not want you guys to fall asleep. So bear with me. Hope you guys enjoy the presentation and take a little something from it as well, whether it's something at the beginning, middle, end, or nothing. I'm opening up to you guys. This is a bit of my history, a bit of my story, and I guess a little bit of an insight into what my mindset was like in order to be the athlete that I am today. Obviously, I'm not here to answer any questions, but if you do have any questions, I don't know if there's somebody that might be able to make note of them. Whoever I think is in charge of the call, I don't know if you're able to maybe message them your questions, and then they can pass it on to me, and I will be able to email my response or even do a little video reply for answering your questions. So don't feel like you're having to listen to this and not have any questions from it. If you do, more than happy to answer them. Okay, so going into the wee presentation, bear with me. I will quickly share my screen. I hope this works. Da-da-da. Awesome. All right, so coming into my journey. So every journey kind of starts off somewhere. I don't know whether you can see this. This is me swimming, age 6. It was the 25 meters butterfly, and this was in the pool in Inverurie. 4-lane, 25-meter pool. Shallow end was pretty shallow. Deep end, I think, was, I want to say 5 meters deep. I don't think it was maybe as deep as that, but it was pretty deep. I remember if you used to dive down to try and touch the deep end, your ears would pop because of the pressure. But as I say, every athlete has to start somewhere. So for me, this is only 4 seconds long. That was my experience of a 25 meters butterfly. It's a life lesson number 1. Never finish on your face when you're trying to swim butterfly. I kept all my teeth. I didn't knock my teeth out, but I think I did give myself a bit of a nosebleed. But it was a bit of an eye-opener that I was very, very competitive, wanted to reach the wall first. And I was so focused on trying to get to the wall that I finished with my head rather than my hands. So life lesson 1, and especially you guys all know, when you're swimming butterfly and breaststroke, touch the wall with 2 hands. Touching the wall with your head doesn't get you very far. So I don't know if I was DQ'd. I actually don't think I was. I mean, I was only 6 at the time. I think the rules have changed and you can't compete, I think, under the age of 8. But this was just a local meet. And funnily enough, at that time, I wasn't aware that this would be the pool that would take me to future 3 Olympic Games, 4 Commonwealth Games, multiple European Championships and World Championships as well. So my journey in that pool started by smashing my face off the wall. Oh, and it's playing again. There we go. So this is an image from 2006. So for me, my commitment to swimming was pretty much cemented actually at the Commonwealth Games. I used to wear and race just in costumes. I hated the knee suits. I just didn't, I mean, I wasn't great at breaststroke. And for me, I just preferred the normal costume. Medley was becoming my strongest event. I was a 200 fly swimmer from the age, I think, of maybe 10 to about 14, 15. But it was quite a strongly contested event. A lot of good young girls were coming through. And I found the 400 IM was an event that not many people liked to do. And I saw an opportunity there. I was terrible at breaststroke. I will put my hands up and say I could swim it faster backwards than I could forwards. It definitely was not my strongest stroke. I worked hard at it in training, but it just never seemed to click for me in racing. But yeah, it wasn't until I was 19 that I decided to wear a knee suit, well, 18, 19, that I would go and opt for wearing the knee suit. So there is an advantage. I know at the minute we've got the ruling that I think it's under 13s or 12 and under can only race in non-FINA stamped race suits. So pretty much just training suits. And I do think it is a good idea because you want to feel the water. You want to really value, because your body is changing so much. So my body shape there is different to what my body shape is now. So you get a greater appreciation of the feel for the water. You know, it's not as expensive as well because you're growing and changing. And yeah, and for me, you know, you get stuck with your habits. And for me, my habit was racing in just a costume. But this moment was pretty significant for me. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Commonwealth Games were in March 2006 over in Melbourne. So it was great. I got to have like a month off school right in the middle of my hires, just not long after my prelims. So I had to take a lot of schoolwork away with me. But the whole experience of being in a village, you know, seeing the media hype, having cameras all over the venues, and just the whole experience. And, you know, for me, I think it was possibly the best way to start my career in swimming was representing Scotland. I'd represented Great Britain at the European Junior Championships, but for me, it wasn't until I hit the Commonwealth Games that my decision to take my swimming to as far as I could take it was purely based on being part of Team Scotland at the Commonwealth Games. Fun fact, Melbourne in March, even though it's their summertime, it was freezing in the evenings. We had to get parkas and really warm clothing. Never thought I'd see the day where I'd be cold in Melbourne. But yeah, from there, I've made a couple of mistakes. So we had accreditations. And to get from the village to the venue, you had to show your accreditation to get onto the bus. And one of the days, I think it was just before, a couple of days before my main race, the 400 IM, which, fun fact, was on the very last day of the swimming schedule. I had lost my pass. I turned up at the bus and I realized I didn't have it on me. Cue massive panic. So I sprinted back to my apartment block. My roommate, obviously because my pass was missing, it meant that my room key was also missing. So I had to try and find a way to break into my room because I thought I'd left it in my room. My roommate's gone and I can't get into my room. So I managed to somehow break into the room, look all the way around my room, couldn't find it, had to leave it. Luckily, one of our sort of teammates was staying behind, so she said that she'll keep an eye on our room. To make it back to where my bag was, in tears, being like, I can't get to the pool because I do not have my pass and I'm not going to be able to race. And it was just the worst timing ever. One of my teammates had actually rummaged into my bag and actually found it at the very bottom of the bag. So from then on, I understood the value of threading your pass to the top part of your bag, and there it stayed unless I was racing. So that wasn't a good moment. And also actually prior to that competition as well, I was very, very ill. I contracted pneumonia in January and ended up in hospital for 2 weeks. And I was very, very poorly, to the point where we weren't sure if I was actually going to be able to compete at the games. I was in hospital for 2 weeks. I lost about 8 kilos and I was quite a light swimmer. I will kind of put it out there. I weighed about between 50 to 52 kilos. And I was, under 45 kilos by the time I came out from hospital. I was very, very unwell. And funnily enough, my very first session back after being in hospital, I got drugs tested. So I had to phone up my mum and say, can you please tell me what the doctors gave me? Because I need to let them know what medication I've been put on whilst I was in hospital. So it was a bit of a tough time. And, interesting experience going, all the way around the world to, race at the other side, dealing with jet lag, being away from home, going in knowing, okay, I've been pretty ill. I don't know what my results are going to be like. And I ended up coming away with a 4th place finish. Now, a lot of people will think, oh, God, 4th is not great. And to be fair, I really wish that I had been on the podium, but considering what my body had been through, that self-reflection, I realized, it actually wasn't a bad thing. We flew back. I went to the British Championships and had to try and qualify for the European Championships because I didn't get the time at the Commonwealth Games. And 12 years later, I'm still competing at the Commonwealth Games in 2018. I was very lucky enough to actually be on the podium and to win a silver medal. So for me, my career, one of the things I've loved about swimming has been the Commonwealth Games. There is something just spectacular and special about wearing the blue and white jersey, the blue and white jacket, hearing the national anthem, whether you're lucky enough to hear it for yourself by standing on the first place or hearing teammates or hearing from other sports. There really is nothing quite like it. But in order to get to there, the 12 years between that, there were lots of things that happened, lots of different competitions, and as I say, lots of different little injuries and niggles, and finding out who I am as an individual, how I get to that point. As I mentioned, the little 6-year-old me smashing my face against the wall. I am very competitive. I will put my hands down and say, or hands up, sorry. I am an extremely competitive person. I have 2 younger brothers as well, and that really helps or hinders. So I felt like I had to prove myself. I had to kind of fight for my place in the family. Did not like the fact that if my brothers got better than me at anything, those of you who have siblings may understand that or may think, oh, what on earth are you talking about? But for me, I just loved being able to work hard and trying to be the best. Putting it simply. And if things didn't go according to plan, it wasn't the end of the world. I still came back up fighting. My dad is my coach, and one of the key phrases he always tells me is, be the last man standing. So in other words, it's keep working hard, keep fighting to the point where, be that last person that's still going at it. So for me, that's kind of my little mantra with it. So I've got a couple of my logbooks here because I don't know whether you guys keep logbooks. This was one from 2004. So I had not long turned 15. So this is when I was kind of more focusing on the 400 IM rather than the 200 fly, but it was still quite an important event for me. And I was traveling over to Cyprus, at the age of 15, being able to travel, missing school. Obviously I had to take schoolwork with me, was quite exciting. It was brilliant. My mum and dad used to write notes to the school being like, oh, just to let you know, Hannah's going to be away on a camp. Please feel free to give her extra homework. And I used to be like, no, why are you doing that? But I actually do value that because it is so important to stay on top of your studies. As you can tell, the smudges and stuff on the side there, it got quite mucky. But yeah, I value these logbooks actually so much more now. At the time, yeah, I definitely felt they were a little bit of a chore. But what it does is it gives you a little snapshot and a reminder. So if you do find them or if you do keep them and you look back, whether it's a couple of months, a couple of years, you actually get to see what it is that you were doing at that moment in time. It's just a little snapshot. And also it gives you that responsibility. One of the things that we are taught in my club Geary at the time, when I was 15, was you are responsible for your sport. Setting your alarm, getting yourself up, not relying on your parents to do it, because ultimately you own your sport. So this was a couple of the pages that we had in. We had notification that if we did not take our logbook to the camp, we were sent home. It was pretty brutal. And I'm quite a literal person. I'll tell you a wee story about that later on. But I made sure I made a list of all the things that I needed to pack. Luckily enough, in this logbook, it did tell you what you needed to pack. We were issued these, or these were posted out to us. And yeah, I do remember going on a camp one time and somebody didn't bring their logbook and they were literally turned around at the airport and sent home. So yeah, it was really important that you have to bring your logbooks. So male athletes, we had Lewis Smith was there, Jonathan Cook, Richard Butler, and then the female athletes, Lorna Tonks. She actually has ended up over in Australia. Sophie Cole, Julie Gold. A couple of the names you might think, who are these people? Some of you guys may know them, some of you may not. The image on the right, basically, if you want to have a little look at what my personal best times were, you might have a look and see some of you might be quite a bit quicker. Some of you guys might be similar times, but these were my best times, short course and long course, for the age of 15. I was a 4:47 short course and just under the 5 minutes. For a long course for 400 IM, 200 fly, I think, was also my main event. 220, not quite under 220, but 216 for a short course. And where's my breaststroke? Breaststroke 247, so not far under the 3 minute mark, and 120 for the 100. So as I say, breaststroke was definitely not my strongest point. So my main strengths, I say butterfly, underwater work, kick, and also medley events. My weaknesses, breathing control, breaststroke, backstroke pull, and back end speed on 400 and 200 IM. So these are some of the sets that we were doing. So one of the sessions I had was, nearly an 8K set, freestyle target times, working on what the session aim and objective is. I mean, have a little think. When you go into a training session, do you know what your aim and objective is going into each of the training sessions? Some of you guys might be lucky enough and know what your coach is going to prescribe, so you know roughly the type of set. And some of you guys might not. Sometimes I used to go into training sessions and I didn't know what the set was going to be like. But having an idea as to what you're going to work on in the set, I think is just as important. We rely quite a lot on times and what the stopwatch says. If the stopwatch is reading good times, we're happy. If the stopwatch isn't reading good times, sometimes that can impact how we feel. And I think it is important to have something else to focus on. So for me, this session was working on my breathing control. That's breath control, not birth control. I think I just decided to miss out the vowels, and breaststroke technique. So it was kind of like a main freestyle set. We had to be aware of what our target times were for the set. And then on the right-hand side was basically my post-workout analysis. So I had to rate myself, how I felt my attitude was, how I applied myself, and how overall I felt. Extra comment, my arms nearly fell off after the 3,500 front crawl set. So for me, I felt that was pretty spectacular. And the areas that I felt I made progress was my stroke technique. Workout objectives, working on breaststroke technique, improved my breaststroke stroke, working on kick, tough, but completed the set, and held a heart rate of 168, sort of effort of 14 for the 3,500 front crawl set. And then we had to hand our logbooks in sort of in the middle of the day to each of our sort of coaches, and they would also write notes and comments. One of the reasons as well by having a logbook, I actually probably should have moved this around a little bit, was at home. I mean, I say having a logbook, I think, is really, really handy. It gives you that sense of responsibility. It gives you an outlet as well, as you saw with my info. You can write how you feel. You know, you're allowed to sometimes feel a little bit off, or if you feel great, write down that you felt great. Or if you don't know how to put it down into words, draw diagrams. I was trying so hard to find one of these other logbooks that I had where I used to draw stick figures. I had a little stick figure that was lying on its back, crosses for eyes, holding flowers and a little gravestone, because I was that tired and that dead after the training session. All I needed was that image. And it just gives you an outlet and a way to communicate with your coach as well, or whoever is coaching you if you're on a camp. And it gives them an insight as to how you manage the set, because they can see visually how you're doing, but sometimes just that little bit of an insight as to what's going on in your head also helps them with preparing for the next training session, or if you need extra help with talking about it too. So balancing schoolwork as well, going through school was really quite challenging, but I can't tell you enough how really valuable writing out a timetable was. So one of my logbooks that I decided to make myself, the very front cover, I actually had my timetable. I also had this printed out, I think on our kitchen, out in our fridge in the kitchen. And it allowed both my mum and dad to see what I had coming up. So coming into sort of, standard grades, hires, advanced hires, when studying was really, really key, it gave me an idea as to where I had study breaks, basically, where I could fit time into basically being able to get homework done, and if I needed any extra help. So for me, I tried to make sure that I didn't miss any training, and just being able to plan it. Organization, I think, really does help. It's a good skill to have. And also, if I felt overwhelmed, if I felt that there was too much going on, sometimes this timetable would remind me where I can put in little breaks, because it's important to have a break. I mean, look at Sunday, I had rest. I trained in the morning, and then it was rest for the rest of the day. And it was important to have that break. Find something that's, that you enjoy doing, whether it's napping. Napping and snacking was kind of my favorite. Watching movies, reading, kind of all the usual stuff like going shopping and stuff. But it is important to allow your body and head, don't forget about your head, to rest and recover too. So it was, pretty full on, 18 hours of training. Option of 18 hours training, but there was definite 15 hours. Land training was 4.5, and then in between that you had to fit in schoolwork. So some of the other logbooks, so this is one of the logbooks that I'd made myself. My dad did help me make this as well. It's very, very detailed, as you can probably tell. So it was an Excel spreadsheet that we just put into different columns and different blocks, and I would fill in each day. So it would say at the top of the day what my heart rate was in the morning. Taking my heart rate in the morning was something that we did to identify when I was getting ill. So I kind of worked out what my average heart rate in the morning should roughly be over like 10 seconds, or you can take it over a minute. Downside to taking it over a minute is I would normally end up falling back asleep. So sometimes I had to do it over 10 seconds. If you started noting that your heart rate was getting higher in the morning, so if your average, for me, it was around about maybe like 50, 53, if it started going up, 57, 60, getting higher than 60, it's a sign that your body is stressed. So is it stressed because you're overloaded physically, or is it stressed because your body's trying to fight off an infection? So again, it allows you to identify, right, if you are coming down with a cold, nutrition's really important, trying to stay on top of, your vitamin C levels, keep eating, keep drinking, and allow your body to try and recover from it as best you can. And again, the comment section was really quite important. For the one on the left-hand side, I felt tired and not that motivated at the start, but gradually I became more focused and motivated. I'm not one for writing beautiful English essays. I literally just said how I feel in my head. The other side, I used a slightly tighter band than normal for my pre-pull work. Also, I noted that I worked on my breaststroke and it felt really good, especially the 300s. And overall, today felt brill. So for me, I felt quite happy with how the day went. And this was really important because my coach, he wasn't a full-time coach, he was a helicopter pilot as well. So these little logbooks were really important for him to gauge how his athletes were coping with the training sessions. And it gave us a voice as well. It allowed us to give a little bit of feedback. Here's some of the others. There's another one. This is on a training camp. I think this was with City of Glasgow back in 2004. So I think I was 14 at the time. So again, lots of breaststroke stuff, working on how you felt your health was, confidence, sleep, energy, enthusiasm. It can be a lot of information, but again, it just allows you to just take a little snapshot how you're feeling that day. And it's just information. So on that particular day, on the left-hand side, my health was maybe about a number 8. So it could be that I've been, training quite hard and just feeling maybe a smidgen flat, but not too bad. Felt pretty confident, slept really well, energy was good, enthusiasm, I can't see it, I'm assuming is circled at number 10. Muscle soreness isn't too bad, and I feel that I can communicate with the coach really well. And again, middle part, the comment, it was really hard for me, the breaststroke, but I really tried my hardest. As I say, English is not my forte. Bit concerned about my knees. They started to really hurt after each kick. I was pleased with my 200 breaststroke because I was completely tired at the end. Yep. So again, just little things like that. So I was able to notify the coach that, I was having a little niggle or kind of couple of issues with my knees. Next training session that I didn't really have that much breaststroke in it because of that. So, it is important to give that feedback. And that's why I think it is so important to, if you can keep a logbook, try it and see how you feel with it. And then, one of the other training sessions there on the right-hand side was over 8K. I think this was all long course. If I remember rightly, this was back in Cyprus as well. So making an Olympic team is pretty spectacular. I remember qualifying for Beijing for the first time, and I felt hugely focused. I knew what my goals were for trying to get the time. They had heats in the evening, finals in the morning. Kind of similar to, I guess, what the trials were for Tokyo, where, it was all about trying to get that qualifying time in the, you have to do it in the evening, and then you had to come in the top 2 for the final in the morning. So a bit like the Glasgow International meet. So that was a second round for the qualifiers. And it was spectacular. For my logbooks, I'd written, midterm, short-term and long-term goals. And my long-term goal was to go to the Olympic Games. And in all honesty, I genuinely didn't think it was going to be something that I could go for. I wanted to write it down because, it seemed like something that everybody else wanted to go for. But I'll kind of jump back to that one. But it was this lady here. Now, some of you guys may know her or you may not, but this lady that I'm with here is Misty Hyman. I remember 2000 Olympic Games. I was watching, I was never really into watching swimming, funnily enough, when I was younger, not until I was about maybe 10. And it was purely watching this one race, the women's 200 fly. And watching Misty was just incredible. And I just felt so connected with who she was as an individual. she came out the walk, as they announced, lane 1 to 8. Everybody had their goggles on, looking pretty super focused and looking ready to go. And Misty, she was waving to the crowd. She had a big grin on her face. Her goggles were up and she was looking at the crowd, just taking it all in, smiling and waving. And you just think, wow, you're at an Olympic final. And she just looked genuinely happy to be there. And then, spoiler alert, if you've not watched the race or know who she is and what she's done, she causes one of the biggest upsets at the games. She beats a girl called Susie O'Neill, who was pretty dominant in the 200 fly for many, many years. And Misty was coming through the ranks, and her underwater work is incredible. She started fly kicking on her side. She found out that kicking on your side, it's less resistance than kicking on your front, because when you kick down, the water hits off the bottom of the pool, comes back up, creates a little bit of resistance. So she kind of, I wouldn't say invented it, but she pretty much started the trend for fly kicking on your side. And it was amazing to watch, and her reaction at the end was pretty spectacular. And I just loved that she's at an Olympic Games. She's obviously done all the training that she needed, that all she had to do at that moment in time was just enjoy it. And I've just strived to be that ever since. I just strive to enjoy what I do. And I've kind of come to learn different levels of it. I'm not quite the person that will stand and wave and smile before I race. That's more maybe at the end of my race. But it is important to enjoy the fundamental parts of the first 3 letters when you start, the fun. The mental part does come later, but it's still important to enjoy what you're doing, because we do put our bodies through a lot. We mentally put ourselves through a lot. And we do reap the rewards, and the rewards can come from medals, but they can also come from other little moments as well. So I'll come back to this moment here. And so again, some of you guys may know where this is from, some of you may not. And I'll be intrigued to know what your thoughts are when you see these images instantly, whether you think they're filled with joy, filled with disappointment, or it's always interesting what people see when they first see these images for the first time. Coming into the 2016 Olympic Games, I was in the call room with 7 of the best 400 medley swimmers in the world. I had the previous Olympic champion, Ye Shi Wen, quite nervous in the corner. Katinka Hosu, who was dominating swimming at the time. She was, now known as the Iron Lady. She still is. But she had a death stare. You just didn't want to make eye contact with her. If you made eye contact with her, you felt like you were going to die. It was just really, really hard hitting when she was staring out. She was just very, very intimidating. Then you had the Spanish girl, Maria Belmonte, who one of the world's best distance freestylers. They're very strong at front crawl, very versatile and resilient, and a very good medley swimmer too. She had some interesting tactics in the call room, very flexible. She can do the splits against the wall, and sometimes she would sit next to you and just bring her leg up right to her face, which was always a little bit off-putting, so you try not to take on that. Then there you had 2 American girls in the corner. You tend to hear them before you see them, Maya Dorado and Elizabeth Beisel. And you had Amy Wilmot as well. So, it was a very, very stacked field. Then you hear the call, women's 400 IM, please come this way. So you come out and you walk, being paraded out, lane 8, lane 1, lane 7, lane 2. And as you walk out, all you can see is that 10 lane 50 meter pool. There's nothing else you see. You're very aware of the crowd, but all you see is just how blue the water is when you're walking out. And we've all got our routine. We've all got our little quirks that we do, whether it's in the call room or just behind the block. For me, I always rub my hands and my feet on the block to get the sort of skin a wee bit hypersensitive. I rotate my ankles clockwise and anti-clockwise a certain number of times, and then I always crack my neck to the left. Does not crack going to the right, only to the left. And that's just, again, my little superstition that I do before I get on the block. You hear the whistle blow and you stand up on the block, and then everything just goes so, so quiet. You hear take your marks, and then the buzzer goes and you hit the water. Now for the 400 meter race, I cannot for the life of me really remember much of the 350 meters. But what I do remember is that last 50 meters. anyone who's done a 400 IM, you cannot wait for it to be finished. The last 15 meters, you are on fire. Like your lungs are burning, your arms are burning, your legs are burning. You're questioning why you're doing this to yourself. But with 50 meters to go, I pushed off, very aware that Hozu is out in front. And I think I can see the American girl as well. And I don't know who is in third position, but everything's happening so quickly. You're not really going to stop and think and look. You're just reacting, you're responding and just racing the race of your life. Coming into the last 25 meters, I suddenly start seeing splashing in the corner of my eye. As we're getting closer to the wall, I realize it's a Spanish girl, Maria. She's caught me up on the last 50 meters. With 15 to go, she's caught me up quite a fair bit, and I choose not to breathe. I put my head down. I think hydrodynamics here. I'm not going to muck up my streamline. I'm going to keep my head down. I'm going to literally just hold on to get to the end of the wall, reach for the wall, and as soon as I touch, it's taking in as much oxygen as you can. It's like such a big breath, thanking yourself that you've survived the end of the 400 IM. And the first thing I do is I look up at my block. International competitions, we now have lights on the block. 1 light is first, 2 lights second, 3 lights third. And the first thing I did was look at my block, and my block obviously only had no lights. But I'm very aware that over to my left, there are a couple of blocks with lights on, and to my right, there's also some lights on. So I thought, right, okay, so there's obviously people that I've not maybe noticed or seen coming through, but let's turn around and have a little look at my time. And as I turn around and look at my time, I realized that the time I've done, a 4:32, was one of the fastest times I'd ever done at an Olympic Games. I've never been that quick in a final at the Games. So I was really, really chuffed with myself. The scoreboard then readjusts itself. And it then tells you who comes first, second, third, fourth, all the way to 8th. And I noticed next to my name, I have the dreaded number 4 next to my name. And not only was it number 4, I looked at the time from the person who came third, and it was Maria, the Spanish girl, who came charging down that last 50 meters. And she beat me by 1500ths of a second. Now, being beat by such a small margin is quite devastating. I'm not going to lie. It was brutal because I didn't know how to feel. One hand, that lifelong dream, that little 12-year-old me writing in my logbook that I wanted to go to the Olympic Games. Not only that, I had put in brackets that I wanted to be on the podium. And that moment was just 1500ths of a second out of reach. I've been trying to have a look and see how quick 1500ths of a second is, but I don't need to do that for you guys because you'll understand how close hundredths of a second can be. And but it was one of the best performances I'd ever done. So where did that leave me? And it took me a wee while to come to terms with that race. And it actually, for me, is possibly one of the best races I'd ever done. And it taught me an awful lot about what does success, how do I value my swimming? Yes, we strive for the medals. Yes, we want to be on the podium, but it's so much more than just the podium wins. Being able to travel the world and get to meet some incredible individuals. For me, I was lucky enough to have been selected for the first season of the ISL. I was part of Aqua Centurions, and I still have my reflective boiler suit. I don't really know what else people were calling them, but they were very strange, but very cool. And to see swimming getting publicity that I think it deserves, and for a way for us to make money, I guess, turn it into a bit of a professionalized way, I think hopefully should be a huge incentive. Because for me, that competition, it wasn't about trying, obviously you wanted to win, but it wasn't about the medals because we didn't get medals for this. It was about the team. It was about the support. We were paraded out as a team. We had individuals on the right-hand side there. That's me next to Georgia Bowl, a breaststroker from Australia. People might recognize her dad's name, Michael Bowl, as well. So, you got to meet some incredible swimmers, and you're all like-minded. We all train together. We're all part of this one competition where we want our team to do really, really well. And it's your effort as an individual that helps drive that team. And from swimming as well can take you through many different stages in your life. I've been lucky enough to have done quite a few talks, learning a lot about my own individual self, my career, what resilience means, goal setting, all the usual kind of talks, I guess, that sports individuals get to, but get to go through. But I feel very honored to be able to talk about my story. I do feel it's a little bit different. I'm not the tallest athlete in the world. I am, 5'5". So as a swimmer, I am pretty small, but I like to think that my attitude, my drive and determination has taken me, many, many places. On the left-hand side, many of you guys may know, I have a dog called Poppy, who for me has been the light of my life. She has reminded me quite a lot of important messages for myself to remember and apply, not just in training and in swimming, but also in life with swimming as well. Communication, again, goal setting, being kind to yourself, setting yourself up for success. What environment do you create yourself? Trying to teach Poppy different tricks. And for me, I have to make sure that she enjoys what she does, because I want her to listen to me and I want her to come back and enjoy and develop and grow, and our bond builds. Why don't we do that to ourselves? We are quite hard on ourselves if we don't perform well. If Poppy doesn't perform well, she's like, okay, well, what's next? Do I go again? Do we do something different? She doesn't live in a mindset where she has grudges or she regrets things. Yes, they pick up bad experiences and she wants to avoid them, but she works toward what she enjoys. And I think if we want to be successful in our sport, I think it's important for us to set up our environment that we enjoy it. Yeah, there's going to be tough times, but how do we give ourselves the tools to enjoy the tough times, overcome those hurdles and setbacks? In the middle here, this was from October 2020, not long after I'd just come out from major shoulder surgery, and I had one of my rotator cuff muscles repaired. I've been lucky enough that I've gone through, a good 30 odd years. Well, I'm 32 at the minute, but I've been able to go through 32 years of my life without having to go into anything major medically, apart from my stint of pneumonia when I was 16. But physically, I've really tried to look after my body, and pre-pools, post-pools, all those things are so important. And for me, I was just very unlucky that one of my rotator cuff muscles just wear and tear over time and just wore itself out to the point where it pretty much just split in half. And I've been swimming with that for about 4 years, and I wasn't really aware of it. So I've got it now fixed, and it is a lot stronger and a lot better. And rehabbing it has been interesting. But some athletes will be faced with difficult decisions. And that was one of the difficult decisions I had to make, because I was so desperate to make a 4th Olympics. But this shoulder surgery, I had basically been told that it would take a year. And I was told in September 2020. And I knew 1 year meant that I would miss the games. So I did everything I could to go through the rehab and tried to do in 6 months, basically what the doctor told me would take a year to get back. And I guess it was just my determination and drive that kind of kept me going. Finding stuff to enjoy, I think, is so, so important. As I say, Poppy was really a big factor in that. If I was to describe myself, well, here's a challenge for you guys. Basically, if you were to write a short biography, can you give yourselves a biography that doesn't involve swimming? Excuse me, I'm talking so much and my throat's getting dry. Because I used to say, oh, well, I'm Hannah Miley, triple Olympian, quadruple Commonwealth athletes, world champion. I could kind of go off all the accolades. But can you describe yourself as a person without the accolades? And it took me a long time to figure it out. And the only reason I say that is we are more than just the athletes. The athlete is what sets us up to be incredible human beings. And for me, I call myself a full-time body movement enthusiast, part-time puppy trainer. So for me, that's my little bio that I would put if I was told to describe myself without using accolades. And on the right-hand side, there was one of these training sessions I was doing in a loch during lockdown. We were faced with some incredibly difficult times during lockdown, having to find a way to still remain a swimmer. And I think it is so important that we we don't lose that, because as athletes, we live for our sport gives us so much more, but you've got so much more to give as well. And some of the lessons that we learn along the way in swimming is just as valuable as winning those medals. So a couple of takeaway points would be, what do you class as success? For me, that 6-year-old me smashing my face against the wall, that's success, because I learned a very big lesson that day. My 4th place in Rio was also success, because it taught me that my self-worth and self-value, again, is more than just the medals, but be proud of that 4th place. Yeah, it hurts, and it still hurts to this day. I still would love to have been on that podium, but it wasn't meant to be, and there's nothing I can do. It's completely out of my control. I did everything possible that I could have done in that race. There was nothing, I even replayed that race in my head over and over again, thinking, if I'd just gone out harder, if I maybe not gone out hard enough, maybe I should have pushed it here, there, and everywhere. I think the outcome would have been completely different. And I don't think it would have gotten me that 4th. I think it would have gotten me a lot slower time. For me, that was my perfect race. There are moments as well, like Commonwealth Games in 2014, celebrating, trying to sit on the lane right by the end of a 400 IM. I fell straight off. And it's on YouTube, I think, for everyone to see. But yeah, again, having little moments like that, that is also success. But success as well out with swimming, having something that allows me to have a little bit of a mental break from swimming, working with Poppy. For me, doing different tricks, teaching her to read. I taught her to swim as well. And I'll admit, during lockdown, I got very jealous at one point because she was swimming and I couldn't. The water temperature was still far too cold for me to swim. So yeah, it is, the journey still continues. My journey's not finished yet, and I've still got a wee bit more to go. I was going to tell you a wee story about why I'm quite a literal person. So I was about 4 years old, and we had people over at our house, and we had a cat called Bruce, and he was a fluffy cat, very, very fluffy, big feather duster for a tail. And anybody who has a cat knows they have a really horrible habit sometimes to just dip their tail across food, drinks, and all that. And we had a low sitting coffee table, and people put their drinks there, and of course Bruce was just sauntering past, but just would dip his tail across all the food and all the drinks. And it was getting on people's nerves because they're having to pick out cat hair out of everything. So my dad went over to me and said, "Oh, Hannah, could you just kick the cat out?" So I went to pick up Bruce, and I was only 4. Bruce is a big cat. So I was kind of like waddling over to the door, put him down, opened the door, and my right leg went all the way back, made contact with Bruce as I kicked Bruce out the door. And I got into so much trouble for that. And in between my sobs, it was like, "But you told me to kick the cat out." Because I was just, mum and dad shouted at me, "Why would you kick the cat? That's cruel. You can't do that." So yeah, my parents had to be very careful with what they told me because I would literally just do it. I've learned, I'm still a little bit literal today. So for me, sarcasm, I don't quite get sometimes because I think they're being serious. But I still make my own decisions. I'm not like a robot where I follow everything, but I don't mind doing it. I'm pretty good at doing what I'm told, I guess, in training. So it made me a very coachable individual. But yeah, so there's been some funny little stories along the way. And as I say, the journey's not over yet. There's still more to come. And I'm really excited for you guys as well to see where your journey continues and where you guys go on to, whether you go on to a Commonwealth Games, Europeans, Worlds, Olympics, or if you don't make it to that level, you've not failed as an athlete. You guys have achieved so much, especially to get to this point. And I think it's really important to value what you've done, and to use those life lessons to take it to the next level. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a couple more hurdles, whether it's through injury, whether it's through schoolwork, whether it's through just life in general. There are ways around it, but it takes a really strong-minded person to sit and look at the bigger picture. How do you get around it? What are the tools that you need to get around it? The answer might not always be right there in front of your face, but it is important to sit and reflect. Reflection, I think, is huge. Have a little moment today. Sit and reflect back on what the last 2 years have been like for you guys, you know, going through COVID. What set you apart from other athletes? You know, what have you done to make yourself stand out and for you to be proud of what you've done? And for me, I pride myself in my values, my hard work ethic, but also my drive. You know, as I say, I'm hugely competitive. My fiance Ewan, he doesn't swim as much, but you know, I try my hand at other things to try and compete against him on little bits for fun. You know, give me a board game and I will try and win. It's just natural instinct. So never be afraid of that. One of the things I used to love as well was actually training camps, because it would take me out of my comfort zone of being at home in my home program. And it would put me up against, you know, some of the best swimmers, whether it was a Scotland camp. You know, we used to do the camps from Christmas over New Year. And we had 1 year, I think, where we had a target of who can try and swim 100 kilometers in the week, so 100,000 meters. And yeah, I loved it. You know, I was up against, you know, Lorna Smith, who again was another really good medley swimmer, really good backstroker. And it just pushed me. You know, made me train harder in those camps than probably what I did in training. And I learned a lot from that. So take the opportunities. You guys are going to get lots of opportunities being part of this national team. And really use it to your advantage. Don't miss out on the opportunities. And yeah, I will stop talking now because I think I've waffled on for quite enough. But feel free if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer any kind of questions. Don't be afraid. But yeah, enjoy the rest of the camp. Hope you guys take a lot from it. Hopefully some of my waffling makes sense and maybe resonates with somebody. Would be ideal. But I will hopefully see you guys on a poolside soon. All the best with your training and good luck.